Sacred Contracts. We are going to pick up right where I left off. Now, not too much on me because I made y'all a playlist, okay? So if you're trying to figure out where we left off, girl, it's been so long, just go to the playlist, okay? Well, let's get right into it. So, your archetypes are generally visible in every stage of your life. Even if you see an immediate connection between an archetype and its house, take the time to look back into your history for past experiences that reflect the pattern. Your archetypes are a mirror of yourself. The more you learn about the nature of an archetype, the more you will learn about yourself. The questions that I'm going to give you guys, so make sure you have your notebooks or journals or something that you can take this down, screen record, whatever works for you. But the following questions are designed to elicit your reflections on memories of your major experiences. They're meant to cause you to interpret these experiences in symbolic ways, such as how they were introduced to you and how they introduce you to overall life patterns. The more detailed you can be, the better. Drawing on your successes and failures, the challenges you faced, and the ones that you ran away from, the better. Allow your feelings and responses to emerge from within you. As you enter your short answers in your journal, or like I said, however you choose to write these things down, you should also record any imagery, dreams, or associations that come to mind, even if they don't seem to make sense. These questions are directed as much to your unconscious as to your conscious mind. The conscious mind often produces instant replies in one word or brief phrases, while the unconscious will give you impersonations, impressions, and images. Answer all the questions for each archetype and house, so take your time with doing this. The first question is, what are my immediate associations with this archetype and the meaning of its house? When you focus your attention on an archetype and the meaning of its house, you will get a rapid flow of intuitive perceptions even before your conscious mind takes over and jogs your memory. Your intuition provides you with data that is timeless and transcends literal thinking. The next question, what specific experiences come to mind as I think of the partnership between this archetype and its house? Following question, what associations with relationships do I have with this archetype and its house? Next, we have what issues of power come to mind as I review this archetype and its house? So you will have to ask yourself this question more than once, of course, because it requires serious excavation of your motives. Power issues have to do with control and its manifestations, as well as with ambition, values, generosity of spirit and self, and so much more. Every part of our lives involves some exchange of power. We either gain or lose power in everything we do, say, or think. Whether we are conscious or unconscious of our behavior, and majority of the time we are conscious more than we would like to admit it, but we intend to use power to gain advantages for ourselves. Okay, so the next question says, what kind of power do I associate with this archetype? Be specific in your description of your power associations with each archetype and make certain that you list both the positive and the negative associations. That's going to be greatly beneficial to you. Next, we have when I combine the archetype with its house, what experiences can I recall that directly relate to learning about my relationship to power? Am I competitive? Have I ever harmed another person because of my actions, power plays, or ambitions? Have I ever helped to empower someone else in any of the areas of this house? The seventh house, for example, rules your relationship. Ask yourself if you have deliberately blocked someone else's opportunities or empowerment because it threatened you. Look in your past for all experiences that have taught you about the nature of true empowerment. Then see if you can determine which archetypes awakened your desire to pursue your higher potential. So if you hear somebody in the background, people gonna people, and I'm trying to work. But we are going to keep going because I want to get this information out so we can be done with sacred contracts, okay? So now we're going to move from the past to the present. The next set of questions focuses on your present day-to-day life. Question number 1. What lessons and wisdom have I learned from the partnership of this archetype and house? Question number 2. What challenges am I presently confronting within the meaning and context of this house and this archetypal pattern? Question number 3. What strengths and talents can I associate with this archetype house partnership? And question number 4. What opportunities have come into my life that I can connect to this archetype and this house? Next, we have what fears or superstitions do I associate with having a direct connection to the characteristics of this archetype and the meaning of this house? Next question, what unfinished business within this house relate to this archetype? What health crisis do I associate with this archetype and this house? What challenges relate to the emotional and psychological stress points appropriate to this partnership? So, as you can tell, and I'm not done giving you guys the questions, but as you can tell, we are at the point where we go through all of our archetypes and all of our houses. We answer these questions so that way we are creating our chart of origin. So that's why all of the information that was given beforehand was given beforehand. So now it's time to actually sit down, reflect, plan out, do these questions, answer them to the best of our ability so we can really get down to our paths and our contracts. Okay? So I know it's a lot of questions, but if you remember going through the archetypes in each archetype and their relationship and the positive and negative side of it, it will all make sense. So take your time with this. The information will be there. But that's where we are now. Okay. So the next question is, are there challenges that I consider inevitable that are related to this archetype's house? Am I presently facing a significant choice point regarding any relationship or situation that I associate with this archetype house partnership? So, in looking for a significant choice point, don't limit yourself. Don't only think about the grand choices, um, like selling a house or leaving a relationship. A significant choice point could be deciding to exercise for 20 minutes a day, eat more healthy foods, or meditate, because such decisions over time can change your body, mind, and spirit. This exercise can elevate your appreciation for how intimately you are connected to the heavens. It is also the one that makes you admit you need to make choices in your everyday worldly life. The next question is, what experiences would I consider divine interventions and surrenders in this house? What were the consequences of those interventions? This exercise brings your attention into the very heart and soul of self. Most acts of surrender emerge not from such dramatic circumstances, but rather from the endless frustrations of trying and failing to improve your life, or from coping with a chronic health crisis that is listed as terminal, or from letting go of the need to have the heavens explain why things happen as they do. This question directs you to identify and appreciate the divine as a continual and intimate presence in everyday experiences of your life. What two experiences of betrayal do I associate with this house and its archetypal pattern? One in which I was betrayed and one in which I betrayed someone else. So with this, you're going to describe the reasons behind these acts of betrayal and the changes that occurred in your life as a result of being betrayed by betraying another person. Betrayal experiences are archetypal and signal the need to release emotional, psychological dependencies that no longer serve us. So, acts of betrayal serve a valuable purpose. They shake our faith in human injustice and the social code and move us to place our trust in the chaotic justice of the divine. Our need for total control derives from the fear of change. And when an act of betrayal shatters that need, we may become more open to change. In a sense, the floodgates burst and we are forced to float along with the raging currents or drown. That's that release, that's that surrender. When you stop going against the current and you just you allow the current to move you. When we ourselves betray someone else or an idea we once held dear, it pushes us to examine what desperate need could have led us to go against our own best spiritual interests. Recognizing that we have a contract with the person who has betrayed us or whom we have betrayed can help us see the positive potential in such acts. This question makes you call your spirit back into present time. Incidents of betrayal are among the most difficult to forgive, yet, reframing betrayal within an understanding of its archetypal purpose is like being handed a lifeline that can pull you back from the past. So, the question is, how does the challenge of forgiveness relate to the archetype in this house? Each house creates crises that require forgiving. If your first house, which is ego and personality, this is just an example, in your first house, you will need to forgive people who you feel in some way harmed your sense of self. Blessings come in many forms, and many of the most painful times of our lives give birth to our greatest opportunities. A blessing in disguise is itself an archetypal pattern. This question allows you to examine your struggles with forgiveness within every category of your life. You can pinpoint your major challenges that you have when it comes to forgiveness. Now, after answering all these questions as thorough as possible, your journal, your notebook, whatever you choose, should be filled with information. That is the raw data of your life. So now we can begin the process of interpreting your archetypal wheel as well as understanding your life's spiritual path as supported by many individual contracts. Y'all ready? Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so the previous exercises that we've done, you were investigating your reasons for choosing your personal archetypes and beginning to identify the challenges and problems that you need to address, along with the talents and blessings you ought to appreciate. All these gifts and challenges reflect aspects of your divine potential. The wheel and the three-column model are like left and right hands on your body. Using both systems provides you with a symbolic perspective on individual experiences and a conscious method of determining your future actions. Now, you will be interpreting your archetypal wheel as a whole, putting together all the different interpretations. Let's get started. Life is meant to be a mystery, and we will never be able to make it a logical adventure. And this is coming from Carolyn Mace herself. However, she says, but we can interpret the clues that the hand of God leaves us on our path. Now, ask yourself what you know about yourself today and what you don't know. What are your mysteries and what have you been wondering about the most? What has been your greatest influences, both positive and difficult? Ask yourself, when did who I am today begin? Choose the house and the archetype that immediately inspires an answer and jump into your contract through that door. Random interpretations give free rein to your own memory and imaginations, but others are more comfortable following the numerical order of the chart. Find your comfort zone and take it from there. Here are some of the steps that you can follow in using your archetypal wheel to interpret your own contracts. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do this as verbatim as possible, so I had to grab my book. So, number one, finding the lessons in your will and contract. As a first step, choose a part of your life that you want to understand more fully. Your health, career, relationships, family, or another aspect of your life to which you're drawn. Other choices could include your spiritual development, your sexual awakening, the history of your health, or your relationship with a significant figure in your life. Be careful not to ask your will a specific question. Do not ask this will. Should you change your current job? Should you get a new job? Is somebody cheating on me? Did Tyrone leave? Should I sell my house? Do not ask your will how somebody else feel about you. If you're going to get married, do not even ask your will anything about physical or psychological ailments. Don't be asking this will, should you go to the doctor? Don't do that. That's not where we are. You will learn how to seek guidance for specific issues and dilemmas later on. So keep your questions general so that the guidance of any kind can come through to you. So, for instance, you could ask, why have I been unable to forgive my father or my mother? How can I best heal my negative self-image? Give me a clear understanding of why this or that is in my life. Write your questions or your requests for guidance in your journal. Number two, you're going to select one of your 12 archetypes through which you want to seek initial guidance with your will. One of the 12 will generally capture your attention more than the others as a guide for the area you've chosen to examine. Your intuitive self knows the most appropriate point of beginning. If, however, no particular archetype presents itself intuitively, you can simply begin with an archetype that resides in your first house. Number three, once you've selected an archetype, make note of which house it's in and look for the connections between the archetype and the area of life ruled by that house. Write down your overall sense of the significance of that first archetype house connection in your journal. Your entry can be as brief as a single sentence or as long as several paragraphs, but try to be as official as possible, as clear as possible on the first examination. Number four, when you feel that you have a clear sense of significance of that connection, move on to the next archetype that calls for your attention and repeat the procedure. If you choose to start with your first house archetype when you just move to the second house, and so on, in sequence, that's fine. With each archetype, review your positive and negative associations with the meaning of that pattern as it applies to the area of your life that you've chosen to examine. For example, if you choose to trace the experiences and relationships that have contributed to your search for God, then note the positive and the negative contributions you associate with each archetype in that regard from your earliest recall. Okay? So, number five, after gathering memories and associations from all 12 houses and archetypes, study them to see if a single theme holds them together. After you complete one reading, you can formulate another question with a different aspect in your mind from your life. Each time you do a wheel interpretation, you fill in more lessons that constitute your sacred contract. Remember that you are tracing 12 lifelong patterns that serve as the formative threads of your journey of personal empowerment. Combined, these reveal the whole of your sacred contract. Each pass you make through the archetypes and houses should supply another piece of the picture. Since working with your archetypal wheel is more art than science, you may want to get a feel for doing it by reading how other people have pulled together their own interpretations. The more memories you run through the wheel, the more you strengthen your understanding of how events and relationships fit into your overall contract. So, next we will explore casting other wheels in your life. And once you learn how to apply this tool as a method for guidance, there are no limits to what you are capable of learning. Your archetypal wheel is only the first of many that you can cast for guidance in all areas of your life. While your archetypal wheel creates a portrait of your life pattern, other wheels can be cast whenever you have a concern or need intuitive guidance. You can use them to shed light on your relationships, career, and other experiences of your everyday world. The working charts help you practice your symbolic sight and view your life as a continuous process of spiritual growth. Working charts can also inspire creative thinking when you are beginning a new enterprise. It is profoundly empowering to be in touch with your archetypes when you are dealing with other people. Keep that in mind. The technique for casting a working chart is almost identical to the technique for casting your archetypal wheel. You use the same 12 archetypal patterns and you prepare by clearing your mind. But for your working chart, you focus attention and phrase your intentions differently. Consider this process as similar to the manner in which you pray for guidance. The only real difference is that a grounded, practical, and immediate response come through working with your chart. Responses to prayer can be immediate too, but they may also unfold in time. So, interpreting the information you receive on a working chart does not require the same amount of time as interpreting your archetypal wheel. First, you should by now already have a perspective on your lifelong relationships with each archetype. Secondly, you are directing your attention to a specific area in your life. One of the benefits of taking the time to reflect on your answers to the numerous questions involved with your chart of origin is that the process familiarizes you with your archetypal patterns, and then you can now interpret your working chart faster and more confidently. Nevertheless, the more time you take to study the symbolic meaning of each chart you cast, the deeper you will be with your insights, the deeper you will have an intuitive rapport with the process. There technically aren't any limits to how many working charts you can cast because guidance is always available. At the same time, you need to respect the process of receiving guidance so that ultimately you learn to rely on your inner voice. Casting a chart or tarot or any other source of guidance for any minor decision in life will eventually render you incapable of trusting your own instincts, following your own intuition, so on and so forth. So please avoid the temptation to cast a working chart repeatedly regarding the same matter. Think through the guidance you have already received from the first chart before casting a second. Allow your insights to make their way through both your conscious and your unconscious mind and to provide you with the feedback on which you make your choices. A working chart is not a means to see the future. The information it offers can help you gain a higher perspective on the meaning of what is taking place in your life. Many people want the charts to provide them with information on what's going on in their mind or heart or the mind of hearts of other people. This is a misuse of the wheel. Your focus of the wheel should be on the emotions and thoughts in your own mind and heart and the quality of your own actions and motivations. Everyone falls prey to the desire to know more about someone else, to find a way to second guess other people. But keep your attention focused on your motivations. Phrase your intentions like an adult. Asking why did he do this to me is completely inappropriate. By doing that, it you're not going to get anywhere, and then the whole process is pointless. The question should be, what is the learning dynamic that has drawn me into this relationship? What is the lesson for me in this relationship? Your best approach to mastering how to interpret your archetypal patterns is to practice detachment. Get some symbolic distance from the situation and remain impersonal and open about the information you are seeking. I need somebody to get that, okay? I can assure you that you too will confront this same intention in yourself because being impersonal about your own life feels unnatural at first. Nonetheless, detachment is the most effective way of understanding events and relationships and responding appropriately to them. Okay, so a final word of caution. Please do not, under any circumstance, use this tool to diagnose either your health or anyone else's. You are not Dr. Queen, the medicine woman. This is not self-diagnosis. This is not Google 5.0. This is don't do it. Just don't do that. Okay? Keep your questions and intentions as simple as possible. We tend to want to know things or why things happen to us the way they did and ask questions accordingly. But we would love for the divine to provide us with logical explanations that condemn the wrongful deeds done to us while conveniently avoiding any mention of what we have done to others. But life will never be logical, nor will it ever seem wholly fair. Even the many surprises, blessings in life defy logic. So I'm now going to give you guys some appropriate requests. Okay? So remember that your highest potential is not measured by one accomplishment. Everything you do and all relationships have an inherent potential that seems to reveal itself most clearly when you seek understanding with an appreciative heart. The ultimate goal of all of your requests for guidance should be to lead you toward that potential, to stimulate your intuitive intelligence. So begin your request with the words, I am open. Now, here are some appropriate requests that you guys could use. I'm actually going to just post them above and I'm going to be quiet for a second so you guys could catch these really quick and then we'll continue. Okay? So, above is a list of appropriate requests when we're talking about illness, reconciliation, creativity, and finance. Next, we have more appropriate requests when it comes to competition, loneliness, moving, quitting a job, accepting a job offer, um, relationships, and this one actually continues on to more. So, right here we have a continuation of appropriate questions for relationships and also releasing a relationship. And lastly, we have soul retrieval, spiritual fears, fear of surrender, spiritual guidance, dreams, intuition, childhood, and pride. And that's where we stop with the appropriate questions. Now I'm going to show you some inappropriate questions. Starting at the bottom here with pregnancy. Here we have more inappropriate questions about health, relationships, stealing, lying, and your parents. Let me emphasize or re-emphasize that you should avoid phrasing your questions in a way that supports the victim in you. So saying things like, why did they hurt me? Or that focuses on getting into another person's psyche. Why is such and such acting distant towards me? That is not the purpose of this tool. Until this practice becomes second nature, You have to remind yourself continually that you are looking for understanding and direction about how best to work with you and through you for your contract with a particular person or experience. Your goal is to come away from interpreting your archetypal wheel and working charts feeling empowered with a sense that all of your contracts serve your growth and that nothing that happens to you has a negative intent. After you have phrased your intention as clearly as possible, you are ready to release your intention, cast your chart, begin your interpretations of the archetypal configuration that manifests, and we're going to continue. And we're right back to my face. So, now we're going to talk about scripting your game plan with healing mantras. Whether your intention is to heal or to plan the next step in your creative project, the working chart will give you information about what your next steps would be. So you will need to draw up a plan for action. To script a plan, begin at the first house of your chart and write down a word or a brief phrase that will help you put into practice the insight you have gathered from each house on the wheel. This word or phrase will become your mantra for action. For instance, if your actor archetypes reside in your third house of self expression and siblings, and you are seeking guidance on how to release the weight of past professional failures, your mantra could be no repeat performances. Ideally, the mantra you choose should relate in some way to the significance of the house, the archetype that falls into it, or both. As the actor and the house of self expression both relate to the mantra drawn from theater lingo, in one of the stories, it talks about how this guy named Trevor had the Hadanus in his eighth house, which rules other people's resources and legal matters. He was looking for guidance about starting an e-commerce business that would help people find good restaurants via the internet while traveling, and he felt that the combination reinforced his plans. And so he created pleasure and gain as his mantra for that house to remind himself that serving others' desires for pleasure could help him advance financially. Your mantras need not to be all clever or word plays, of course, although having a sense of humor helps. But the important thing is to establish some organic connection between the mantra and the archetype house linkage. Once complete, this game plan can be used as a spiritual reminder of how to stay committed to the choices that you've made. It will help bring back your spirit into present time, and it will help you consciously manage the way you invest your personal power. It is recommended that you write down these mantras on a small card, like an index card or something, and carry it with you at all times so that you can refer to it in any moments of trouble or indecision. Using these working charts to establish a system of guidance help you explore your life through the symbolic realm. Interpreting archetypal information is like putting on a pair of glasses that brings everything into focus, allowing you to recognize your opportunities, your higher potential, and your mission. This clarity does not in itself provide courage. The choice to take action or not is always yours. You may or may not want to remind yourself of an archetypal significance of why a relationship ended or why you struggle with self esteem. Still, you now have the option. You can cast a working chart. You can open yourself to inner guidance. The choice is yours, and everything in this life ultimately comes down to choice. I don't know if y'all remember, but in the beginning I said everything starts with choice, everything comes down to choice. In the last three lessons, videos, we have talked about casting and interpreting your chart of origin from an overview of your life and to cast working charts for guidance on specific current issues. We are actually wrapping up Sacred Contracts, and I know it's been a while, but in this last segment of Sacred Contracts, you'll consolidate both sets of skills in learning how to seek guidance about the root causes and the dynamics affecting an illness or an ailment or a psychological or emotional difficulty or condition. While this information will not be a medical diagnosis and it's not meant to replace one, it can help you begin your search for ways to heal. Our physical well being is clearly influenced by our psyche. Emotional heartache usually affects the heart itself, for instance. Financial stress or the feeling that you lack support in what you do often hits you in the lower back, and the pancreas is especially sensitive to issues related to the responsibility. At their root, many physical and mental ailments also represent an inability to respond appropriately to a challenge to one's personal power. Once you understand the connection between these power challenges and the resulting health challenges, you gain valuable insights into the energy caused of your ailment, the causes of your ailment. As you explore the connections between specific ailments and their energy bases, you can use your knowledge of the archetypes and the archetypal wheel to devise healing strategies. Since archetypes reside in the psyche, reviewing which of your personal archetypal companions may be involved in a specific health challenge can help you find clues to healing it. Simply knowing that a particular archetype is involved in your illness or ailment will give you some measure of comfort, just as reading a story or a myth that describes the same journey that you are on or gives you a model to guide your own life. People who lose everything in a catastrophic event, um, perhaps their lives have been burned to cinders in order for them to rise like the phoenix from the ashes. If they can recognize that they are in that pattern, they can take comfort in the story of Osiris, of Job, of Jesus, whose experiences with death and rebirth became the core of their identities. So, the archetypal stories, which are also archetypal promises, contracts, in fact hold the system of life together. They also offer us the opportunity to heal if we can become alert to their presence within us and find a way to connect them to our physical ailment. However, it may not be apparent just which of your archetypes is involved in a health challenge, so you will need to narrow down the field. Changes take time. Change takes time. Change takes time. I want to tell you that. However, choosing to change takes but an instant. It's the resistance to change that can take a lifetime. Within the energy fields of your mind, heart, and willpower, you can transform the lead of physical matter, the dense energy content of your memories, history, attitudes, belief, and life experiences into gold. That is a form of alchemizing, for sure. Forgiveness, for example, forgiveness melts the lead of painful memories into the gold of understanding. Conversely, knowing that you should forgive but choosing not to add lead to your psyche and your spirit, which eventually accumulates dead weights in the cell tissues. In any form of unfinished business, such as hatred, bitterness, negative aspects of love, or regret, that contributes harm to your body as well as to your spirit, the more unfinished business or history that you have, the heavier your lead will be. So remember that. I want to share this example from the book. Ebenezer Scrooge. When Scrooge awakens from his dream in his Christmas day, he hasn't missed it, is what he declared with childlike joy. So we all know the story. We all know how it started. We all know that when he came back, he was ready to get things right. Our own work resembles Scrooge's task to stop creating more lead in the present and begin converting the lead we already carry into gold. Having recognized this rule, it is easier to understand, for example, why energy, medicine, and treatment sometimes have limited effects on illnesses. Energy medicine is a timeless method of healing. Its effectiveness in massage, aromatherapy, or acupuncture comes from activating or freeing blocked energy that has occurred over time. These healing methods seek to break down heavy energy from the past to facilitate the flow of current energy. By healing and releasing negative attitudes and beliefs and traumatic memories that are pulling on your energy and pulling your energy into the past, you return that energy into present time where it enhances the vibration of your entire system. The more you remain in present time, the higher the frequency you attain on the scale of present time consciousness. In that process, your energy field plugs into cosmic electricity. When you are in present time, perfumes are transformed into healing scents through aromatherapy. Massage becomes a discharge of cell memory through touch. Forgiveness transforms the poisons of anger and resentment. The speed of your healing is increased, and any restrictions that the tribal mind has determined for an illness, such as that it takes 6 months to heal from one disease and 5 years from another, no longer apply. You have removed the weight of history, and with it, the length of time you need to wait for the results. Yet, to enter into a timeless state, we have to surrender our will to the divine and live according to that choice. Cases abound of timeless healing and spontaneous remissions, sometimes referred to as miracles. In each instance, what preceded the healing was a decision to release, to forgive, to agree to change, and in general to accept a different path for one's life. I have never heard of a timeless intervention after which the person returned to the same temporal life. People who have made timeless choices radiate that energy or charism, drawing others into their field of divine protection and faith made manifest. Every one of your contractual agreements is a temporal experience that contains a timeless potential. You can count on everything you do and every one of your relationships to become at some point uncontrollable. That is the point at which you would be wise to separate yourself from the first column of perception and imagine yourself running up into your third column to focus into a timeless reality. You need to see whatever circumstances you are in as an outside of time and space archetypal story with a theme, characters, and lessons, and as an opportunity for you to surrender. Continuing with the previous examples I've given you guys, these are for those who want to. What you would do is you would follow the same directions for casting a working chart, and you would use it into helping yourself find insight when it comes to your health. So, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. The first house challenge is birthing the self. The energy is vulnerability, the skeletal system, the spine, the joints, the autoimmune system, skin, and potential illnesses that has something to do with the first house could be chronic pain, eczema, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, and lupus. The second house challenge is claiming of values. Energy vulnerability is the lower back, hips, and sexual organs. Potential illnesses is impotence, sciatica, ovarian or prostate cancer, lower back pain, and slip disc or endometriosis. Next, the third house challenge is facing the fear of truth and the seduction of deceit. The energy vulnerability here is the solar plexus, intestines, throat, thyroid, esophagus, and sinus cavities. The potential illnesses for this is ulcers, over and underactive thyroid, laryngitis, chronic sinus problems. That is dealing with the third house. Again, this is not medical diagnosis. This is just something that you can use to find more insight of what you're working with when it comes to your health. The fourth house challenge is developing loyalty and coping with betrayal. The energy vulnerability there is respiratory, circulatory, lymph, and central nervous systems. The potential illnesses that has something to do with the fourth house is asthma, allergies, and nervous disorders. The fifth house challenge, is entering the desert. Energy vulnerability here is mental energy, intuition, creativity. Potential illnesses about this is physical and emotional fatigue, depression. The sixth house challenge, establishing self-worth. Energy vulnerability for that is the cardiovascular system, eyesight, hearing, and taste. Potential illnesses, the heart attack, cataracts, tinnitus. Seventh house challenge is maintaining personal boundaries. Energy vulnerability is the solar plexus, the pancreas, colon, and intestines, sexual organs, and intuition. Potential illnesses, colon and intestinal diseases, spleen and liver disorders, diabetes, obesity, and alcoholism. The eighth house challenge, confronting greed and developing personal integrity. Energy vulnerability is lower back, liver, kidney, and the brain. Potential illnesses is migraine, disc problems, sciaticas, cancers of the stomach or other central body organs, and brain aneurysms. The ninth house challenge is enduring faith crises. The energy vulnerability here is the psyche. The potential illness is spiritual depression, manic depression, chronic fatigue. The 10th house challenge is coping with rejection and failure. Energy vulnerability, overall psyche, overall physical tissue, willpower. The potential illness is skin cancer, bone marrow cancer, throat disorders or disease, eating disorders, TMJ, or arthritis. The 11th house challenge is surrendering to the divine. Energy vulnerability here is vitality. Potential illnesses is Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and other neurological disorders, paranoia, and other mental and emotional disorders. And then we have the 12th house challenge, overcoming the fear of personal empowerment. Energy vulnerability is balancing of the psyche and the spiritual and the spirit. Potential illnesses is panic attacks, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Now, I want to also share 12. Let's see, do I want to share that or do I not? Indecisive. Okay, so might as well, right? So, the first house challenge with birthing the self, the healing guidance there is to keep your attention in present time and do not allow your vital life force to slip into your history. Keep that in mind. So, second house challenge, claiming of values. Choose one area in which you have a conflict that continually disempowers you. Every time you become aware of that feeling of loss, pause and remind yourself that you are now experiencing the power of a negative perception and not a reality. That is some healing guidance for that one. Third house, facing the fear of truth and seduction of deceit. Healing guidance is this challenge demands that you review your moral and ethical codes of action along with your ways of intellectualizing and rationalizing your behavior. Ask yourself, what have you done to deceive others by breaking your word and other acts of dishonor? You may want to call on a spiritual director or someone who is skilled at an objective listening to help you with this self examination. Fourth house challenge, healing guidance is to clear out your inner self just as you might flush out of your respiratory or circulatory system. Fifth house challenge, entering the desert, healing guidance. This challenge sets you up against the force of your own willpower, making you aware of how much genuine authority you have to take charge of your own actions. Sixth house challenge, healing guidance is you need to empower yourself by carrying out personal actions that make you feel good about yourself. Seventh house challenge, healing guidance is identifying the boundaries you need to feel empowered and making a commitment to maintain at least one of them consistently. Eighth house challenge, healing guidance is the need of you to release your fear of money or the lack of it. You're giving that too much authority. Ninth house challenge, healing guidance. You need to commit to a daily practice of prayer and meditation and vow to maintain it in all circumstances. 10th house challenge, healing guidance. Rejection and failure are the names we give to feeling disempowered. Until you can believe in yourself without the support of others, you will always be vulnerable to rejection and feeling like a failure. Keep that in mind to work on that. 11th house challenge, healing guidance. Surrendering means letting go of your need to control everything and everyone at all times. It's really just that simple. Here's a mantra though, that you can practice. I surrender the outcome to the divine. And then the 12th house challenge, healing guidance. The only way to break the hold of the saboteur is to face it head on. Face your fears, face those things that has that much empowerment over you. Read spiritually inspiring prayers with the intention of calming the spirit within. Go for a walk, things of that nature. So the second step in healing a specific challenge is to examine the relevant archetype house pairing in your chart of origin. Refer to your journals or wherever you jotted down all of your information, and that's where you will plug those in at. You will need to use your imagination and intuition to explore ways in which the relevant archetype may relate to your ailment, especially if it's psychological, emotional, and spiritual cases or causes. Before you move on to the final step of casting a working chart, keep that in mind. So basically, you're going to do the same thing, but this time you're just doing it when it comes to your health. Okay, so you guys, we are pretty much finally at the end of sacred contracts. We are not meant to solve all the mysteries in our life. Rather, we are meant to explore the mysteries and discover ourselves one piece of our spirit at a time. Gradually, we become whole, more conscious, more aware that life is a spiritual journey and everything is make believe. Your archetypal companions are the guides of your unconsciousness. These patterns will surely get you where you are meant to go because their role is a manifestation of how the divine keeps up in its end of your contract. You will arrive where you need to be when you need to be there, and you will meet the people you are meant to meet, whether you know it or not. Knowing it, however, recognizing that everything in your life is organizing around your contracts, awakens trust, and that is the first step toward making our final choice. Do we trust enough to allow the divine to make choices for us? Once we do, then our role in life is only to follow through with those choices. If you have found, or if you find yourself in a relationship that is hurting you deeply, you now have a reference point. Your highest choice is to forgive. You always have the option of understanding that this relationship may have came together to open your heart in just that way. You may not want to act on that insight, but at least you can see it. You have the option, as hard as it may be, for you personally and for your personality and the ego to grasp an appreciation at the fact that you weren't meant to meet this individual. You have a higher perspective from which to view your life, to see that your part in all contracts is to search for the divine intention hidden within the physical form and to base your choices on those insights. Remind yourself when you need to that a contract is a guarantee that the terms have been set. The other party or parties of your contracts have as much interest in your spiritual growth as you do. Use the energy of that truth to create the extraordinary life in this physical world. Don't just leave your spirit to wander on its own. Keep yourself in present time and in one place in yourself. Above all, remember that we are each following different routes along the same general path that leads us to the same final task, surrendering to self. Only through realizing that the futility of spinning our wheels in the direction of personal control do we finally wake up to the truth that we are in control of nothing other than the moment of when or if we can finally trust that our sacred contracts are governed by a force of wisdom much greater than our own, and that the agreement you made prior to your birth will lead your spirit back home again. That is what surrender looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all who has been on this sacred contracts journey with me, awakening your divine potential. I recommend getting this book. I recommend getting this book. I absolutely love this book. This book has taught me so much. I'm actually kind of getting emotional about it that I actually completed it, because every time that I made a video, I was somewhere before a chapter. I was somewhere in life currently before the chapter that I read, so it helped me understand where I was and what to do. It is a great guide. It is a great tool. Carolyn Mace also has other books. She also does workshops presently, if you guys want to check out her website. But again, everybody should have a copy of Sacred Contracts. Absolutely love this book. Thank you all for joining me. I know it's been a while. I know it's been a ride, but we've completed it. We're done. Moving on to the next. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Happy New Year. Live your life with high hopes, prosperity, abundance, all things positive, growth, elevation, happiness, joy, peace. And until next time, I love you.
I'll give you the sun, the rain, the moon, the stars, and the mountains.